This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Now what you just heard there was basically a little bit of a solo that I put up on YouTube ages ago, well over a year ago, and the tab and everything for it and the video of me playing it is already up on my Patreon page, my wonderful Patreon supporters, but I'm going to put it up again for you today in case you missed it, because quite a lot of people have joined since then and you might not have trawled through my old posts to to check out what was there before you joined. So what you were also looking at there was the music notation for that solo. Now imagine being able to look at a piece of music notation like that and be able to hear the sound of that music in your head without, kind of ever having heard the piece of music before. Well, you can do it. All it takes is a little bit of practice. If you remember last week, we looked at the rhythmic aspect of reading music notation. Well, today we're going to look at the actual notes on the staff, how to read where the notes are and where to put your fingers on the guitar as a way of, playing those notes, how it all relates to the guitar basically. So let's get straight into it. Okay, here we have a pair of clefs, the bass clef at the bottom and the treble clef at the top, and this is where the notes that we're going to be playing will be displayed. The notes are shown both on the lines and in the spaces between the lines, and on the bass clef you can see that the notes we have on the lines are G, B, D, F and A. Or if you're a bit of a theory nerd like me, you'll know that is a G ninth chord, and in the gaps or the spaces between the lines we have A, C, E and G, or an A minor seventh chord. We're not worrying too much about the bass clef because most of the time on the guitar you're reading on the treble clef, which, as you can see, and as I'm sure you probably remember from school music lessons, the lines give us the notes of E, G, B, D and F, or every good boy deserves football, or whatever other mnemonic you learned, and the spaces, the notes there, spell the word face. So in between those two clefs we have the note of middle C, which is the note you find on the first fret of the second string on the guitar. This presents us with a little bit of a problem because it means that most of the notes that you're playing on the guitar will be scattered across, some on the bass clef and some on the treble clef. So what we do on the guitar is we write it an octave higher than it is actually played. This is where the middle C, the first fret on the second string, is displayed on the guitar. So now we've got that reference point, it will be an idea, I think, to take a look at where some other useful reference points, notes that you know how to find on the guitar, will be shown on the clef. And let's start with the open strings. So that's where the open strings on the guitar are displayed in relation to the treble clef. And you can see that even though we've done that little dodge of writing things an octave above where they're actually played, that's pretty standard for all guitar music, by the way, There are still a couple of notes which are on what we call ledger lines, those little lines beneath the staff. And it can be a little bit inconvenient to have too many of those where you're having to count lines, how many lines below the staff, or in some cases above the staff. So what we do is we use another little octave-based dodge here. We write them an octave higher again. So the E and A notes there would be the 2nd fret on the 4th string and the 2nd fret on the 3rd string, respectively. But if we put 8VB above where those notes are written in the staff, it tells us to play them an octave lower. And likewise, you would have a whole load of ledger lines if you wanted to play way up at the 12th fret at the octave area. So we can use the term 8VA to indicate that you play the notes an octave higher than what is written. That E note there, without 8VA above it, would be the open 1st string, the E string, but we move it up an octave by putting 8VA above it, and that tells us that it's the 1st string at the 12th fret. So that establishes the basic idea of what's going on. Now let's go into a little bit more detail and take a look at some of the finer points. Okay, so now we know how any note that we might encounter on the neck of the guitar would be written on the treble clef, and if it's a sharp or flat note, then you just stick the relevant sign in front of it. For instance, there's an F sharp. It's a note on the F line, and there's a sharp symbol in front of it, which means that you play F sharp. That would be the 2nd fret on the 1st string, by the way. And what would happen is that any other Fs that happen later in that bar, you would also assume were F sharps. Once you've sharped or flatted a note once in a bar, you assume that it's the same for the rest of that bar. If you need to play an F note as opposed to an F sharp, then you stick a little natural sign in front of it like this, and that would tell you to play an F note. But what happens if we have a piece of music where you're only ever going to be playing F sharps and you're never going to be playing an F note? For instance, if you're in the key of G major, there is no F note in the key of G major. It's always played as an F sharp. The G major scale is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. You don't need an F note there. So it's simpler just to indicate right at the beginning of the piece that all of the F notes in the notation that you're going to be reading will be actually raised up a semitone into F sharps, and we do that with key signatures. Okay, here are all of the key signatures that you would ever encounter. Basically along the top line there we've got all of the sharp key signatures and all of the flat key signatures along the bottom line. Let's look at the top line first. As I'm sure you probably remember from your music lessons at school, the key of C major has no sharps or flats. It is just the notes of C, D, E, F, G, A, B and C. But as we've already seen, when you go to the key of G major, what you do is sharp all of the Fs. And then if you were to go to the key of D major, you'd keep the F sharps, but you'd also sharp all of the Cs as well. Then if you were to go to the key of A major, you'd keep the F sharps and the C sharps, but now you would sharp the Gs as well, so Gs would be played as G sharps. Then in the key of E major, you'd keep all of the previous sharps and also add a D sharp, so all of the Ds would be played as sharps. And you can see as we move along here, there's an extra sharp appearing on each of the relevant lines. Then if we were to go to the key of B major, then once again you keep the previous 4 sharps, the F sharp, the C sharp, the G sharp and the D sharp, and you now add an A sharp as well. So the key signature for the key of B major, for example, is an F sharp, a C sharp, a G sharp, a D sharp and an A sharp, 5 sharps. And then moving on to the key of F sharp major, you can see that we add another sharp. This time we're sharping all of the E's. So they actually become Fs, but we don't write them as Fs here because we're sharping all of the Fs, if you remember. So we write the F note in the key of F sharp major as an E sharp. You're basically just sharping the E note so that it goes 1 semitone higher, and that's how it's written here. So there are all of the sharp key signatures: G major, D major, A major, E major, B major and F sharp major. Now let's go back to the key of C major again. No sharps or flats. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And if we want the key of F major, well, basically we take the scale of C major and simply flatten all of the B's. The F major scale has the notes of F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. So you just stick a flat on the B line, and that tells you that whenever you see a B note written, you play it as a B flat throughout the piece. Moving on to the key of B flat major, we now do the same thing. We keep the B flats, and this time we flatten all of the E's as well. So we stick a flat on the E line. The next key in line is the key of E flat major, which has the notes of E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, and back to E flat again. So this time we have to flatten all of the A's that we would see in a piece of music in the key of E flat. After the key of E flat, we go to the key of A flat, which also flattens all of the D's. Then moving on to the key of D flat, we now have to flatten all of the G's. And then we come to the key of G flat, which was previously the key of F sharp when we looked at it earlier. This time what we're doing is flattening all of the C's. Now you will note that you don't flatten a C. There's no such note as C flat. It's actually a B, but we can't write B here because if you remember, we've already flattened all of the B's. So we have to figure a different way of looking at it. We have to write it as a C that has been flattened. So in this instance, we call it a C flat. So there you go. That's how to read key signatures at the beginning of a piece of music. It's just basically a shorthand way of telling you what notes you're going to be playing in whatever key you're in, and without having to clutter things up throughout the notation with loads of sharp and flat symbols next to the notes that you're going to be playing. And that really, along with the rhythmic aspect of music notation that we looked at last week, basically it gives you all of the tools that you need to start reading music and get fluent with it. But you've got to treat it like what it is. It is a language, and you don't become fluent in a language just by reading or buying or reading an instruction book on what's going on in that language. The way you become fluent in a language is by immersing yourself in it. Just kind of use every opportunity that you can to try and read some music. If you're one of my Patreon supporters, then there are any number of tabs that you will have seen, and they're all available in the Guitar Pro format. Now, Guitar Pro is a fantastic resource. It really, really is. I've been using it for years, and it's massively helpful to me because as guitarists, we understand how to read tab. It just comes along with the rations, basically. You learn how to do that pretty early on. But what Guitar Pro allows you to do, and I have no affiliation with Guitar Pro, by the way, I don't have any links with them. I'm really recommending it because it's a fantastic, piece of software. It allows you to, it acts almost like as a Rosetta Stone where it will translate the tab into music notation and vice versa. Like this, if you go into Guitar Pro and you're looking at the tab, then if you go into the View menu and untick Hide Standard Notation, you can see all of the notes that you're familiar with in the tab as music notation. And you can just start learning to translate from one to the other. That's how I did it, and it seemed to work for me. And as I say, the more practice you get doing this, the better you'll get at it. And that really is the key to it. Just keep going through it and practicing it and learning by example. Okay, so that lick sounds like this, and that's what it looks like written down, that kind of thing. So to close things off for today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that solo that we heard a little bit of earlier at the top of the video. I'm going to play out with that again. As I say, this has been up before, but I just looked at it earlier a few days ago and I thought, that's a good one. I'm quite proud of that one, so I'm going to use this as an excuse to give it another airing. As I say, the backing track and the tab and the music notation and the video of me playing it are all up on my Patreon page. There's the address and the link is in the description. As a special thank you to all of my wonderful Patreon supporters. Thank you, chaps. Much, much appreciated. And that's pretty much it for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed the video, found it useful, informative, and maybe somewhat inspiring. And if you have, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not give me a like while you're at it? Don't forget the live stream, 5 5 p.m. UK time on a Friday, where we sit around and have a beer and talk about all things musical and guitar related. Great way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. And here's that solo. Bye for now.